cast this morning, our Facebook, YouTube cast. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for your viewership, and we praise God and hope that it's been a blessing, and it is a blessing to you at all times. So we want you to know that we do thank God for you. I want to preach this morning as it's kind of, before I preach, is that Tammy over there? I know she's been with her mother and my sister-in-law, and it's good to see you in worship this morning. Thank God for you. Thank God for that. Reggie was back. I saw him out there. So they've been going through just a little bit of a challenge, and good to see y'all this morning. All right. I want to preach this morning a sermon that will be beneficial to you. I hope all sermons are beneficial to you, but this one will be beneficial to you in the sense of providing you with the protection that you need in this world in which we live. You need protection. If you're going to live, and not if you're going to live, but because we live in a world such as we live in, we need to be protected. We need to know our protection, know where it is, and know who's doing it. And I think we will be much, much appreciative of all of the things that God has done for us when we know that. Nehemiah, the fourth chapter, book of Nehemiah. The fourth chapter, the first fourth chapter, the first 3 verses, 4 verses, 5 verses. What I'm trying to say is in Nehemiah. Fourth chapter, we'll begin reading at verse 1. You got it? Fourth chapter of Nehemiah, verse number 1. But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we build the wall, he was wroth, and took great indignation and mocked the Jews. And he spake before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Really, you hear that, don't you? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish which are burned? Now Tobiah the Amorite was by him, and he said, Even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Attention to verse number 4, because it didn't say it, but this is the prayer that Nehemiah prayed. Hear, O God, for we are despised. Turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity. And cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee. For they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. So build we the wall, and the wall, not walls, wall, singular. And the wall was joined together into the half thereof, and the people had a mind to work. In chapter 6, I want us to read just a verse or so in chapter 6, because this is a process that goes on for a period of time. Chapter 6, verse number 14, 15. Chapter 6. My God, verse 14. My God, thank thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat according to those their words, and on the prophet Nodiah and the rest of the prophets who have put me in fear. So the wall was finished in the 20th and 50th day of the month of Elul, in the 50 and 2 days, in 50 and 2 days. And when it came to pass that when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathens that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes. For they perceived that this work was wrought. The word wrought means worked. This work was wrought of our God. That's enough. I want to preach this morning to you about the vanity of the enemy's intimidation. The vanity of the enemy's intimidation. Most Christians are intimidated by the enemy, by Satan, all of his minions and imps. Most Christians are intimidated. They live in a life that reflects lack of confidence and fear when it comes to the enemy. I heard Dr. A. Lewis Patterson years ago, long before his death. He was preaching. He was one of my favorite expositors of all time. Regardless of ethnicity, he was preacher extraordinaire for me. And he preached a message about, and I don't know what it's about, but he said in that message, he had a friend when he was in California, and he asked his friend, how was he doing? How was he doing? And he said his friend began to tell him and unveil to him, I got a new house, and I got a new job, things going well, making the kind of money that I want to make, that I've been trained to make. And my family is doing well. And he said to his friend, call his name, I can't recall his name, but he called his name and said, I did not ask you what you had. I asked you how you were doing. Most people, when you ask them how they are doing, they want to give you the substitute of what they have. Stop talking about what they have. And I just got back in town, just got off the plane. That ain't how you doing. You can be sick and riding the plane. You can be fearful and riding the plane. All of these kinds of things. So the issue is with Satan is, are you living under the veil of intimidation? Now, when I talk about the enemy, I'm not talking about conflict between sisters and brothers. They're not my enemy. That's just somebody you don't get along with too well. I'm talking about an emissary from the devil. See, most Christians kill other Christians thinking they're killing the enemy. You don't, if somebody don't agree with you, you don't have to kill them. I know it's kill them, but I just like to say kill them. So there is a difference between the enemy and Christian people who are walking in the flesh. And that's another topic for another time. But I'm talking about the enemy, the vanity of his intimidation. One thing there is among the many things that will hold true throughout eternity is that Satan, and all of his minions, them is little demons and imps, all of his minions and emissaries will be perpetual enemies of the people of God. Some people, I got a good friend that's not saved. How you have a good friend that's not saved? That can't be a good friend. Do you not know that light and darkness share no common interest? I got a good friend. Well, if you're saved and you got a good friend that's not saved, then there's compromise on the line somewhere. Flesh and blood cannot and does not dwell together. The enemy's intent and motive is always seen in the action of the enemy. Always seen. I don't know what that is, and I guess the sound people don't know what it is either, but it's rather aggravating. Satan don't want you to do something. Yeah, it's always seen in the action of the enemy. Always a display. There's a display of negative. The first point of this text is that there is a display of negativity. There's a display. You know any negative people? Huh? The enemy is perpetually negative. The enemy. Look at what happened. It's going to always do what the text suggests. The text suggests in verse number 1, it came to pass. Which means that at this point, that Nehemiah has returned to Jerusalem from Babylon, from Shushan, the palace. And he has information. He had been sent by Xerxes, the king, because he his heart was broken when he found out the condition concerning the walls and the gates of Jerusalem. It's kind of hard to get people to really care about the church these days. They care about their popularity and their personality and whatever, but it's hard to get people to really care about the church. I'm talking about building and people. Hard to get people to care. Nehemiah, as soon as he heard that there was problems with the walls and the gates in Jerusalem. Can y'all turn off anything? In Jerusalem, Nehemiah heart was broken. His heart was broken. And as a result of his heart being broken, he became prayerfully saddened and asked to be returned over time back to Jerusalem. I'm not going to tell all that story this morning. And so he returns, and then he investigates the condition. He walked around the walls and saw at this time I had 10 gates in Jerusalem on the wall. He walked around the wall. He went on an excursion, an investigative excursion around the wall. Before he did anything, he walked around the wall. It's always important to take a survey to see what is happening before you line out with the course of action. If you want your life to be meaningful, you need to take a survey, an honest survey, an analysis of your life and see where you are and leave somebody else's life alone. But take one of your own life. So Nehemiah, because he cared, because he loved God's people, because he loved Jerusalem, his heart was broken about the walls being torn down. And the gate were burned with fire, which means that Jerusalem was exposed. When you have no walls are for protection, walls to show that I have some strength. I can't, when the walls are torn and the gates are down, then anything, people can tell you anything. And you believe it. Without any concern of asking, just simply you believe it. Look, it's in the text. Sanballat heard. His action is based upon hearsay. He heard that the walls, that they were rebuilding the walls. He heard it. He heard it from some people who was around the walls themselves. And he heard it. Come on and talk to me now. Here it is, Kevin, right in the first verse. It came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we build the walls, he was wroth, he was furious, he was angry, and he was indignant. And then he mocked the Jews. Who they think they are? That is the prelude to what is about to take place. It might not have happened yet, but it's going to come to pass. Huh? I said it may not have happened yet, but it's on its way. Are y'all listening at me? And so he heard it. He did not see it. He heard it, that the walls were being rebuilt. And he was furious, and he was angry, and he was mocking. That is a display of negativity. That's the enemy. The enemy have no love for the people of God. I don't want to get into no laundry list today of who the enemy could be, but you really don't know. And you ought to examine yourself real close to see if you're an enemy of the things of God. It wouldn't hurt. Come on now, you make your calling and election sure. It would not hurt to say, it could be me, Lord. Let me before I examine somebody else, let me examine me. If every time that you hear about God blessing somebody and moving somebody and doing something with somebody, and you get angry and furious and whatever else, it very well could be you. I'm not saying you're the enemy, but you could have some tendencies. So you need to examine. We need to examine ourselves. I want to be a friend of the church. I want to be a friend of the people of God. When my mother and my father would put me down, the Lord will take me up. And so I want to be a friend. How about you? It came to pass. Sanballat could not hold it in any longer. Huh? It was in him. God Almighty, I'm going to fool around and get run out of Houston, Texas. It was in him all the time. You never know what's in you until the squeeze is on. Yeah, the squeeze will squeeze out of you whatever is in you. Y'all on. I'm pretty much through with this text. So when he heard it, he got mad. When he heard that the walls, that's all he was doing, was the walls were being built. He couldn't handle it, couldn't stand it. Why? Because the enemy is not against you. The enemy is against God. And you are an emissary of God, and he is an emissary within him, evil self. And so he got angry. He was furious. I guess he cussed a little bit, probably. Said some things, ugly things. And, talked behind the Jews' back. He didn't talk behind their back much. It is recorded. But what he did was he displayed palsy. He displayed a negative conduct. That's in verse 1. You see that? And then in verse 2, and he spake before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, he was a Samaritan himself, an army of Samaria, and said, there are 5 things that he asked here. What do these feeble Jews? That means he was asking, what are they doing? What they doing? Not that he didn't see it and know, but he we'll get to that. But what do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? And will they revive the stone out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? I started to preach, Archie, about what God does with burned bricks. But I said, no, I'll not go. What can God do with the burned? See, the burned brick is the key to everything else. The burned bricks, the last thing that he asked, is the key. It's the key to your life, my life, your accomplishment, my accomplishment. Anything that you will ever do is based upon what God does with burned bricks. Can I tell you something? No, I'm beginning to feel shucks. You know what? You know what I would do with a burned brick? I would throw it as far away from me as I could. That's all a burned brick is fit for, is to be thrown away. But before he do that, before he does that, he does something else. These other 5 things he said. The second point of the text is self-indicting speech. The enemy always have self-indicting speech. His speech indicts him or her. I wish I had somebody. The enemy's speech always indict them if you know how to listen at it. It always exposes their heart again, their mind. He have in verse 2 and 3, Sanballat and Tobiah have self-indicting speech. He asks, the first thing he asks, what are they doing? What are these Jews doing? And he didn't just say Jews, but he called them feeble Jews. What are these little weak people doing? You've had that experience. You know, I have people, I don't know what they mean. They ask me, how y'all keep on going at Galilee? Yeah, a lot of people. How y'all keep on going? What are y'all, you know, how y'all take care of what you need? How do y'all do that? Well, I don't stop too long to answer because I don't think that they are asking for the right reason. I don't think that because if they did, they would proceed what they were asking with a check, but they don't never do that. So I'm not too quick to give my information away if you don't want to tithe into or seed into or whatever you want to, or just put it on the table. So I'm not really, in no long conversation about how we do it. But I will give an overview. I said we do it by the grace of God. When God got grace on your life, you got all you need. Raphael Miller will tell you that I tell him all the time, you cannot improve upon grace. You can't improve upon grace. I don't care what you got, where you work, how much money you got. You cannot improve upon grace. Grace is the best you'll ever have. It transcends preparation. It transcends passport. It transcends personalities and popular people. The grace of God is God's unmerited favor. You don't deserve it, Galilee. You don't deserve it, Mac Paul, but I'm going to just pour it out on you. When you got grace, you don't have to worry about, do I have a full meal barrel, a full meal barrel? Every time you go to your meal barrel, it's going to be some meal and oil. We're living in a different day now. We're living in a different day now. Ain't nobody got nothing. We're living in a different day. And if we're going to make it, we're going to make it by the grace of God. Do you hear what I'm saying? All these high-minded folk, these folk that you can't touch and get to, no, you're going to have to come down, baby. You're going to make it by the grace of God. He said, what are they? I'm looking at it. And I can't put it together. That's the first thing, the enemy. He has self-indicting speech. He's worse than the undertaker who got his hat and black coat and looking at me and said, I'm just waiting because you're a good candidate. They waiting for me. Huh? But somehow or another, he's surprised when you get up and start walking and start singing. I feel a little better now. Because he feels now that he missed the candidate that he had. They don't, that's self-indicting. Here it is. I ain't making it up. It's in your text. He indicts himself. If it's in, I'm going to move on. If it's any list that I want to be on, put me on the grace list. Put me on the sovereign grace list. Put me on the list where I don't have to live up to it. God, just because he loved me, and because he forgives me, and God because he's merciful, and God because he's long-suffering, and God because he said that I will make you faithful. Put me on that list. Some of y'all got to be on a list where your buddies are on. You got some important aristocratic buddies, so I want to be on that list. Not me. Put me on the list where the church know what the grace of God does. Put me on a list where the church said God specialized in taking burnt bricks and making out of burnt bricks what he wants. Then second thing, the vanity of the enemy is that he's not only self-indicting in his speech, and he called them people feeble Jews. He made fun of them. He mocked them. See, the secret things, according to Psalms 25 and 10, the things that are secret, grace is a mystery. It's only revealed to the people of God. The secret things, the covenant of God, belong to those who fear him. If you fear God, you can receive from God what is available to others, but they can't receive it because they don't fear him. See, everybody call me old-fashioned. I don't want to see everything you got when you come to church. This is God's house. We ought to, I know we ain't perfect, and you get home, you're going to do what you want to do, but we ought to have a little reverence. Men ought not come to church with their shirt open way down to that belly button. Come on, man. Anybody, that's okay down in Galveston at the beach, but not in here. They would say, you old-fashioned. I plan on staying old-fashioned. But for your information, whether I'm on TV or not, I'm planning on staying old-fashioned. I don't have no idea of changing, and I don't even want to engage in no conversation with all this modern stuff. The secret thing. Cadillacs are not secret things. Sadie Benz's not secret things. Anything that you can go to anybody and buy, a dealership and buy, any house that's made by a man is not a secret thing. What I need come from glory. I'm shucks. Is anybody in here need something from glory this morning? I need joy unspeakable. I need peace in the midst of trouble. I need to know that I've been loved with an everlasting love. That's what I need. The secret thing. Job says, can anybody tell me when the wind blows where it goes when it stops blowing? I don't know where it goes, but I know somebody who knows. Second thing, third thing. Look how he's dealing with them. Look at what the enemy is doing. He asked the question, are they going to fortify themselves? You see that? He moved from what are they doing, and then now he said, are they going to make themselves strong? Here it is in a city. Here it is in a time of coronavirus. Here's in a time when there's waning in church membership. And the enemy is asking, are you all going to make yourself strong? No, God is going to make us strong. In a time when it looked like everything is born, when the walls, no protection. In a time when there's no gate control egress, in and out. A gate was a place where counsel was given. Got the body. The proverb woman, she loved, the woman that y'all like to talk about in proverb, she loved to see the fact that her husband was somebody in the gates. He was a man of counsel. He was a man of wisdom. He was a man that sat in the gate and deliberated the people problem. What the church needs more of is men who are standing in the gate. Are they going to make themselves strong? Be strong is exaltation in the Lord and the strength of his might. When my enemy and my foe came upon me, something happened to them. Something happened to them beyond sensory perception. See, the enemy don't know nothing about sensory perception. All spiritual sensory perception, all he know about is the flesh. God said, listen, I'm God. I can cross, he said, I can fight with many, or I can fight with few. Come here, Gideon. You don't need all those folk. Take them to Bible study and pour out the water and watch those who drink and lap like a dog. Set them aside, and the others, they can go back home. Get them a good pancake dinner. Strawberries and pancake. That's what they like. Give me some warriors who can fight and look at the same time. God can fight with few, and he can fight with many. I wish I had somebody. And so, brothers and sisters, he asked the enemy in his indicting speech, he says, are they going to be strong? Our strength is in the Lord. Having done all to stand, don't stop standing. And anyway. And then here's another one he asked. Look at it. You see, you following me? He asked, here's a good one they asked. And you got to be careful. He asked, are they going to church? God, he said, are they going to worship? That's a major question on the horizon of faith these days. People get on the hello line. God, somebody. Every Saturday evening and call somebody. You going to church tomorrow? I don't think I'm going to worship. Baby, how can you not? How can you not worship? See, what you need to do is that you need somebody to tell you your habit has never been worship. Your habit is been going to church. You've been going to church for a lot of years, but you never worship the Lord. But I tell you, if you ever worship the Lord, they can't, you be saying, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. If you ever worship him one time, you're not going to ever stop wanting to worship the Lord. Is there any worshipers in this house? You're a churchman. You're not a worshiper. When you're a worshiper, you don't just, I don't need somebody else, but it's something make you jump and make you shout. Come on and talk to me. Make you cry sometimes. When you're a worshiper, it gets in your hands sometimes. It gets in your feet. It make you run and shucks. Are they going to worship? That's what Pharaoh asked Moses. He said, you can go on, all y'all male men, but leave these women and children and your livestock with us. Moses said, oh no. Moses said, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. He said, we going out yonder 3 days. And we're going to take our family with everything that's on hoof. We're going to take it. Because we have to make sacrifice to God. We got to worship God. I don't care what I need to do on Sunday. That's the day of worship prescribed in this American culture. And I'm going to church on Sunday. I'm going to church. I'm going to get up, even if I don't feel like it. If I can put one foot before the other, I'm going to church. And can I tell you something? Houston Astros just won the World Series. You know what I did? Nothing. My day went on just like it always go on. It wasn't no joy bubbling up in my soul. Huh? I said to myself, Vanessa, I got a Savior. He's over in Zion. You know what I said to myself? The Astros can't take me to the top. If anybody can take me to the top, it got to be Jesus. Oh, I'm happy to live in a metropolis like Houston, but I want you to understand that Jesus is Lord and King. So they asked the question, y'all going to worship? That sounds familiar, don't it? People want to know. Are you going to worship? I had a friend of mine, and one of my preachers in the ministry. He worked for the oil company that went belly up downtown. I forget what, Enron. And he said to me, Pastor, he's out working there making that good money. And they wanted me to work on Sunday. He said, I told him immediately, I will not work on Sunday. I said, did they fire you? He said, no. They let me work there until I resigned before they went defunct. What I'm saying is this. If you don't believe that God will work for you, he won't work for you. When I say believe, I'm talking about faith. We walk by faith and not by sight. And so they asked the question, boy, this is a fun text here. He said, will they, y'all going to worship? Not today. We can't go to it. We got to go down and join the parade today. We got to get ready for the parade tomorrow. Now, you think that all them people down there were unbelievers? You had more believers down there than you had unbelievers. Huh? Then he says, then he asked this question to show again his ignorance about the things of God, the enemy. And so we have to think differently. We must think spiritually. We must think according to the tone and the tenor of Scripture. He said, will they finish? God nobody. Will they finish? Somebody said, child, they ain't going to finish. Said it ain't going to be but a little while before it go down. Before the ship go down. Don't fool yourself and think that everybody is praying for your success. Don't fool yourself. You got some people who are sitting in the catbird seat, so to speak. Catbird seat is the good seats. Don't mean nothing negative about that. Them the good seat. They're sitting in the catbird seats. And those are close-up seats where they can see you. See what's going on. The catbird seat. That's the seats they're sitting. And they are wishing and hoping that you don't make it. He asked the question, the enemy, this is the enemy's heart that is being seen. He said, will they finish? What he does not know, Pat, is this, is that Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, is the author and the finisher of our faith. If he can't take me to the top, there's nobody else who can. Can I tell you something? When a church is for Jesus, then Jesus is for that church. I want to be clear. When a church is for Jesus, I didn't say when a church is perfect. When a church is for Jesus, Jesus is for that church. And matter of fact, when Jesus is for a church, when my kids was small, they want to get out there, they wasn't helping me, they was holding me back, and they acting like they was working, and I just, because I had to train them, didn't want them to grow up and be looking at my pocket, so I had to train them out there. And they would act like they were doing something. And here I was carrying all of the weight. I was carrying all of the heavy load. I let them act like they was carrying. They were just in the way, Brother Taylor. I was carrying the heavy load. Come close to me this morning, because what I got to tell you now, this will revolutionize your life. You ain't carrying as much weight as you think you are. Do you hear what I'm saying? The enemy don't want you to finish. You may be carrying some weight. You're supposed to carry some for training purposes, but you are not carrying as much weight as you think you are. He is the author and the finisher of our faith. And then lastly, I wish I had time to preach this text. Then lastly, he says, some bricks that they're going to use while on the trash heap. Anytime that in prior stages the enemy get a hold to us, and he will because of our sin, and they have to be dealt with. our lives will be nothing but rubble. And the walls were burned with fire, and the gates were burned with fire. So what they did, they took all of that trash, God Almighty, and stacked it up. You ever seen stacked up trash? It don't look good. It don't smell good. It's an eyesore. It's a hindrance to the community. Stack up trash. You know who specializes in stacked up trash? Satan specializes in making trash out of our lives and stacking it up. But thank God. Yes, sir. Thank God. Thank God. My wife said often around the house, somebody else's trash is somebody else's treasure. God knows how to say trash. Stack up trash. Yes, he does. How you know? Because I'm preaching this morning. And all I was stacked up trash. But look at me now, what the grace of God has done. You want to know what bricks does? And Brother Taylor, I want you to witness this. If you, my construction man, I want you, if I'm lying, I want you to jump up and say he's lying. When you burn bricks, you know what they do? They turn real brittle. They won't hold together. They turn brittle. You can't use a brick in a construction project that's been burned. You ain't got no business being no preacher. You ain't got no business calling on the name of the Lord. You ain't got no business having any of God's money in your pocket. You ain't got no business being a deacon, a usher, or any other component of the Christian church. You were a brick that had been burned and thrown outside in the trash heap. Somebody said, no, I wasn't. Yes, you was. Yes, you was. Huh? You know what reversed it? You know what brought you back to God's favor? It was nothing but the grace of God. Out on a hill called Calvary. Out on a hill called Calvary, Jesus, yes, sir, hung his head in the locks of his shoulder. Died, didn't he? Yes, he did. Took his own blood after he was raised and pierced in the side, went in and released us from captivity. And I can sing now, I'm free. God knows I'm free. I said, God knows I'm free. I got some things that are wrong with me, but thank God that I'm free. You know how many days it took? It took 52 days. Hey, 52 days for God to rebuild the wall. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I want to tell you, stay right there. Stay there. Be a light in this dark world. Be a testimony that somebody looking at you will see Jesus on the inside of you. And they can say, yes, he lives. He lives. How you know he lives? Because he lives in my soul. Went in the borrowed tomb. Didn't he do it? But early, said early, on the third day morning, he got up. 52 days. The enemy is a liar. God has done for us and done in us from eternity past. Yes, he did. From eternity past, he has done it. Do you hear what I'm saying? And all we need is by faith to walk in him. Do you hear what I'm saying this morning? Anybody living by faith? Anybody know what faith will do? Faith will carry you through the valley. It will carry you on the mountaintop. So you can say, can't nobody do me like Jesus. 42 generations. He did come. He did die. He did go to our tomb. But early, I said bright early, on the third day morning, he got up. Anybody know he got up? Anybody can just wave your hand and say, I know he got up, because he got up in my soul one day. The enemy want to make us feel pitiful. No. No. We are victors. We've already overcome. We've overcome sin. We've overcome the world. We've overcome the devil. And all of his tricks of mind. Whatever it is in your mind, get it out. So what if you don't have a full meal barrel? You still gonna eat? You don't need a full meal barrel. You just need the promise of God. God will. God will. I heard him singing that song one time. God will. Anybody here know he will? Anybody here ever experienced he will? God will take care of you. He'll personalize your name. Won't he do it? He'll pass somebody else. And when they get to your place, he'll stop and say, do you want to be made whole? God will. I'm trying to get out of here. But I need you to know this morning that God will take care of you. Your problem become personal to God. Your name become personal to God. He know you by your name. Yeah, he know your downsetting. He know your uprising. He know your thoughts. Y'all gonna help me here. He know your thoughts before they're in your mind. He will. He will. God will. God will. God will. God will. God will. He will. Yeah. He will. He'll do it. He'll do it. He'll do it. God will do it. Yeah. He'll do it, Kevin.